Katie!
It's me!
Hey, how's it going?
It's really good, thank you.
Oh,
I've just been sat watching tractor after tractor after tractor. I forgot we live in the middle of nowhere and it's harvest. So there's hay bales and there's corn and I'm really sorry if there's loads of noise.
No problem.
I'm thinking they've all just gone though. About 5 have just gone, so I think we're okay.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure a few more people will jump on just now. I see we've got quite a few people live on our Facebook watching. So guys, welcome to another session of interviews with entrepreneurs. And today we're chatting to Katie Stone. I'm actually quite excited to have this chat to you because I think so many entrepreneurs can really relate to your kind of journey of being almost forced into entrepreneurship, really, right?
Yeah, man.
So, we're going to chat about Katie's journey, and she's one of the ladies that we're interviewing as part of our celebrating women in entrepreneurship. So, Katie, welcome, and you look lovely today too.
Oh, thank you very much. I was just looking at that picture you've got on me on stream, and I was like, people are going to think I wear nothing but stripes. Not that inaccurate, to be fair. I do have a lot of stripes.
As a man, I didn't even notice, to be honest. We don't see that, it's like, oh, was that the same? Not sure, is that still the same shirt?
I love the shirt. Bit of Star Wars never did anybody any harm, I don't think.
100%. So, everyone, Katie is the founder of Katie Stone PA Personal Assistants, right? Katie, first tell us, before we go back into how you got here, first tell us, what is Katie Stone PAs?
It's I'm a virtual assistant, basically. I called it Katie Stone PA because I didn't think, like, in the UK, virtual assistants, I mean, they've become a bigger thing over the last year, but when I set up sort of early in the pandemic, I was really worried that nobody would know if I said Katie Stone VA, what a VA was.
Yeah.
So I've ended up with Katie Stone PA, which makes me sound a bit like a private investigator, and I feel like I should wear a hat and a trench coat, but it's all but yeah, no, I work with educators and consultants, people who work in the education sector, and really at the moment I do most anything that'll help them out. Like I always say to people who ask like how to know what you would give a VA to do, think about all of the repetitive, time-sucking tasks that you do daily or weekly or monthly or even yearly that don't bring in, they're necessary, but they don't bring income into your business in the way that you could if you were doing the thing that makes your business yours. And those are the things that you give to a VA. So I do a little bit of social media, not loads, because I don't really understand the metrics. And frankly, the fact that Facebook changes the metrics every 30 seconds is too frustrating. But I do things like I help out. I've got a lovely consultant who I help out with making PowerPoints for her sessions that she does in schools, and I do newsletters and I do blogs. I'm really big into tech, so like setting up systems for people.
Oh, that is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, man, is it?
Oh my word!
Oh yes. God, like the rabbit hole you can fall down on YouTube. Just
because it doesn't end, right? Because I mean, we're taking people through a life journey. But before I get into that, I'm going to get ahead of myself. Let's go back and let's talk about your journey to get where you are and everything. I mean, you gave me this nice long story of how you got there. I want you to repeat all of that because that is...
Oh my God, right, okay. So
let's start. I think we start, where was it, teacher, or was it before that?
Even before that, man, yeah. I hope everyone's got a cup of tea or something.
Yeah, I go water, trying to be healthy.
Nice, that's very good.
But only on camera.
Right, so I went to a private girls' school, and you were expected to go to university. They didn't offer you any other options. And so I went to university, but dropped out after about probably 6 months.
Okay.
I just didn't really enjoy it, and I couldn't see the point of doing what I was doing. So I went and I worked in pubs for years. I was living in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is it's the friendliest, most fabulous city. And I was living with this guy who I'd fallen in love with, and he worked in the same pub as me. And so I just had a mint time, like just getting to know people and learning how to talk to people and working out how to get on with anyone and find like points of contact that would mean that you could, you could really hold down a conversation with anyone, no matter how sort of awkward they might seem. I did that for a few years, and then I tried pub management for a while, but I had a bad experience with a guy who'd run his own pub for a long time, and he'd hired me, but I don't think he really wanted anyone to run his pub for him. And so I left that and went back to uni because I couldn't think of anything else to do. So I finished my degree. And then unfortunately, before I could do anything with it, I split up with my boyfriend and had to leave. I had to move out of Newcastle and back home with my dad, who I believe is watching today. Good old dad.
Really?
Yeah.
David, awesome.
I spotted his name as well. Yeah. So I moved back in with my dad and my stepmom. And for a while I worked on the phones for a telecoms company here, O2. I don't know whether they're in South Africa as well.
Yeah, I know they are, yeah.
It was a massive time for them because it was when smartphones were just coming out. This was like the mid 2000s, and O2 in the UK got the launch of the very first iPhone. So like we were all playing with the first iPhones, which was awesome. Like with the big screen and the sliding and stuff. It was so cool. But again, I loved it because I got to talk to people. And as you may have noticed, I don't mind talking.
I love it. You don't have to drag it out.
Yeah, but I also learned, like in a pub, you learn to talk to people and use eye contact and body language. But on the phone, you haven't got any of that. All you've got is your voice. And so it's so much harder, especially when people ring in. And like if somebody's rung in, they're pissed off. Like generally they're not happy they've had to ring you, and so you had to work a lot harder to find those points of contact with people and make them happy. And so again, I was learning how to help people, and all through these were really low paid jobs, but I knew that what I enjoyed doing was connecting with people and helping them. And then my stepmom at the time was working for the Department for Education in Manchester, and knew a lot of head teachers. And she knew I was getting pissed off with the phone company, or just the repetitiveness of the job, I suppose.
Of course.
And so she set me up with a head teacher in Manchester to just go and try being a teaching assistant for a day. And I went and I did that, and I fell in love. And from there on out, that I was going to be a teacher. I was a teaching assistant for 3 years. I met my husband, who was also a teaching assistant at that school, got married, and then went to Manchester University to do the postgraduate qualification that you need to do over here to be a teacher. Overall, I was a teacher for 10, maybe a little bit more than 10 years. I was in the education system for more than 10 years. Like I had a baby, and then dropped out of it when the second baby came along. That was where I had an ignominious exit.
So take us through that story. What led to that? And
okie dokie. Well, I mean, I guess that the story is the same for a lot of teachers around the world. In the UK, you get a reasonable wage as a teacher, but the hours are not good. Especially primary education, I think. And there's a level of competitiveness within the teaching profession about who can get there earliest and who can stay latest, and like who gives the most to the job, like who gives everything. And there's no money anymore because it's been taken. Like there was a point when I first started in education, if you had the right kind of school with the right kind of children, like you had money coming out your ears more than you knew what to do with. The end of year budgets were hilarious because you just had to try and find things to spend money on. But by the time I left, I was buying pencils for my class because we didn't have money in the budget for children to have a pencil to write with. And it became more depressing as well because the children who came through, you started to see more and more that you couldn't have, like I had to feed children because they were coming in having had no breakfast because their families just weren't in a situation to do that. And all of this starts to weigh on your mind. You've got long hours. I was getting up at 5:30 before my baby got up to go to work. I was in work for 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then I worked solidly. I didn't have any breaks. Like when the kids were out playing or having lunch, I was in the classroom marking. On a good day, I would leave by about 5:30. On a bad day, I would be there past 7 o'clock and wouldn't see the baby at all that day. So yeah, and bad weeks were the ones where there were things like, Christmas fairs, which you're not obliged to go and help out with, but
it's kind of implied, hey.
And like parents' evenings and stuff like that. All of these things, like they mount up the hours, and I was working on a good week 60 hours a week, and on a bad week probably 70 or 80. And it was slowly like grinding me down, but I didn't know. I didn't realize. I thought it was okay, and I thought I was okay. And then I fell pregnant, and that was. And
where'd you find the time?
Yes, my second child has done so many things for me, even before. And one of them was giving me the most enormous anxiety. So I'd lost a baby in between. Like I'd had Archie in 2014, and we'd fallen pregnant really quickly again afterwards, but lost it pretty quickly as well. So being pregnant again, I was hugely anxious anyway, because I now knew how easy it was to lose one. Add to that 70-hour weeks, that's not good for pregnant ladies, especially
not at all.
At a certain age. And I was a pregnant lady of a certain age. That was 2016. Like I was 36, man, and I'd already been pregnant once. I was knackered. So like, and my hips started hurting, and I couldn't even get in the car. Like I had to have a sheet of newspaper on the seat of the car so that I could swivel myself round without having to like open up my legs, because my hips hurt so badly. And all of this was going, and people were saying to me, "Are you okay?" Like senior leadership in the school was saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I was saying, "Yes, I'm fine." And that went on for about 3 months. And at 3 months, I don't remember a tipping point, but I do remember in the Christmas holidays going to see the doctor and saying that I felt awful and I felt worried about being at school, and that the journeys in were making me worry. And I do remember being at a junction to come out onto a big main road. And like I told you, didn't I? Like,
yeah, tell us about that, yeah.
Sat there early morning, like waiting, and it's a big main road, 60 miles an hour, cars going past, lorries, all sorts. It's the main road that runs down the side of Wales, and so you just got to wait for your moment. And
I mean, you live quite far from work as well at that time, right?
Yeah, it was about an hour's commute, which I guess if you live in bigger places is nothing, but in the UK that's
that's huge.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in some ways it was great, because you had time to reflect on the way in and the way out, quiet time to think about and, digest what the day had been. But in other ways, it just made the days even longer, So, yeah, I was sat at this junction watching the cars go past. And I remember thinking to myself, if I just pulled out in front of that truck now, I wouldn't have to go to work. And it wasn't I didn't want to be here anymore kind of a thought. It wasn't a suicidal thought, but it was I could get out of work if I did that. And I remember, that's not how you're supposed to feel when you go to You're not supposed to want to crash your car to get out of it, are you?
Yes.
And yeah, so then it all got worse and worse from there on. And the doctor had said to me, "Go back, try it, see how you go on, and come and see me if it's not getting better." At that point, the senior leadership had really noticed that I wasn't okay, because it was affecting my work product. So they were able to see in the children's books and things like that things were not all right. And they chose to deal with that by giving me lesson observations a few times a week, and like making me sit on my lunch times and discuss why I was crap, and all this while pregnant. By then I was about 5 months pregnant, and feeling more tired and more anxious. And so the thing that sort of got me out in the end was a forced thing. I think I'd been in one of these "you're crap" meetings. And sat and listened to and tried to justify why I didn't think I was crap, but really going, I probably am crap actually, oh no. And I'd got to the end of it and said, "Look, it's planning time for me this afternoon. I'm tired and I don't feel well. Please, can I go home and plan from there?" And the head teacher had very kindly said, "Yes, of course you can." So off I went, and unfortunately had an enormous panic attack in the car on this massive road. So I was very fortunate there was a bus stop that I'd managed to pull into and just sort of breathe for a minute. So yeah, I rang the GP, and that was it. He signed me off that night, and I never went back. That was the end of my teaching.
So that was like the catalyst at the end of the day, just to say, you know what?
It was, and at the time,
I mean, you had no plan. I mean, there was nothing like, oh, this is what I'm going to actually go and do or anything.
I had zero idea, man. And all the way through, like I was off sick. I was signed off sick until I had the baby. So that was January, February, March, April. Yeah, about 3 months I was signed off sick. And then in the UK, you get a full year. You don't get paid for all of it, but you get paid for a good bit of it. So I did the maternity leave started in April. And I remember getting to Christmas and thinking, I need to make a decision here. I need to know if I'm going back or if I'm not. And if I'm not, I need a plan. And I still didn't. I remember emailing at Christmas and saying to them, I just want to let you know in plenty of time so you've got chance to hire. I'm definitely not coming back in April. But with absolutely no plan about what to do. And in the end, I found a job about 2 weeks before my maternity leave ended, and it was a complete coincidence. It led me.
What did you find? What kind of job did you get?
I found a job down the road with a really lovely lady who's more or less one of my closest neighbours. She's about 500 yards down the road in that direction. She lives in a nice house, and she's got a finance business that she's built herself. And it involves, she's got a finance business and 4 children and a husband.
Yeah.
So and she's like head of the governors at the school, and she's sorting out parking places. Like she does everything, this woman. So she's clearly frazzled a lot of the time. And she just needed somebody to help her with like logging her travel expenses so that she could charge them back to customers, and like life admin, like making sure that she was Swedish as well and married to an English man. So all 4 kids had 2 passports, and she has 2 passports because she's a UK citizen now as well. I don't think her husband had a Swedish passport, but still, that's a lot of passports to stay on top of. And again, 4 kids meant they had 3 cars, sometimes 4. So that's MOTs and services and all those things to stay on top of. Just stuff that gets lost. They just needed somebody to be like a central hub that would help them with all the logistics of family life and running your own business. And that was me. That was me for 2017, 18, nearly 3 years. So I was more or less I was an assistant, but I wasn't a virtual assistant.
Yes.
Is what happened.
But that's actually what led you to actually go and say, okay, well, now, this works. Tell us about that.
I mean, still, I had no plan.
Yeah.
Like, what happened, it was so coincidentally great because I'd got to the end of my year's maternity leave, and while I was loving being a mum, being at home with a small baby was driving me like up the wall. And I was ready to hoof her into nursery and return to a land where I could be a human adult person. So the job that I had for that lovely lady, it just about covered the childcare costs for Rosie. So I got nothing from it. Like there was no pocket money even.
Yes, yeah.
It just meant that I didn't have to stay at home and wrestle with the second feral child all the time. And it was great. It was lovely. And it rescued my mental health because I was coming from a place of really low self-worth. Like I thought I was crap, man. Like I was like, why would anybody hire me? I was a shit teacher. I failed at that, man.
Yes.
Like I have no, like, what can I do? I'm a teacher. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And around here, we live very rurally as well. So the other problem was that because we live so rurally, there aren't many jobs close by. I mean, like I could have gone and worked in sort of Tesco and things like that, and that would have been fine. But it seemed a shame with a postgraduate qualification.
Yeah, exactly.
Going to work in Tesco. So then I started thinking, well, what about remote work? And the big thing that changed for us there was getting radio broadband, because I had half a meg when it was normal broadband. It was painful, man. You couldn't stream anything. But we got radio broadband and went up to 15 meg. And all of a sudden, streaming was a possibility and remote work became a possibility. So I started looking at We Work Remotely. And there's a website in the UK called Charity Jobs, where they look for people who will work from home. And I applied loads, and I got loads of interviews for these big firms like Harvest that do time tracking and Basecamp and places like that. Like I got some good interviews, but I never got hired. And a lot of it was because I didn't have any experience with remote work.
Yes.
I was like, right, well, And then, unfortunately, like the pandemic hit, and I was rather forced to think of something to do because the lovely lady down the road stopped traveling. I wasn't allowed to leave the house to go and help with the family.
So that kind of dried up. Yeah.
Like my income went, like, I mean, I think I had about 20% of what I was earning before, and what I was earning before wasn't very much. Yeah. And we were in a fortunate position then because Toby was in the middle of doing his teaching qualification. And obviously all the schools closed in March, and he got sent home as a student teacher with absolutely nothing to do, but all the grant money that they'd been given to do. So we were okay. Like, we had a roof over our heads. We weren't worried about money. And crucially, Toby was there to look after both the kids who were at home as well, which gave me the time to set up a business. I was like, right, well, I want to do remote work. Every interview I'm getting is saying I don't have enough experience of working remotely. Why don't I try being, I'd heard of this thing called a virtual assistant. And I looked up online. There's some amazing women who mentor virtual assistants. There's a lady called Amanda Johnson.
Yes.
She's Scottish. She's not Scottish, but she's an she's ex-army, like she's ex-forces, and so she takes no shit.
I could imagine.
I love her. I want to be her one day. But she had so much helpful information. So I spent loads of time like reading through websites, working out what to do. And then financial year end came, and my mum sent me a little nest egg because her financial end of year had been around, and she was like, oh, well, we'll send Katie a little bit of extra, you know, moolah, so I don't have to show it to, I don't know, whoever it is that she has to show it to.
Yeah.
And have it taken. And it was just enough to buy like website hosting, a domain name, email domain as well. And I was like, right, well, that's it then. That's the universe saying, have a try.
Yeah,
and so I set up. And I'd love to say that it went swimmingly from the beginning, but I didn't have a client for about a month and a half, I would say. Like,
I think that's where there's that huge misconception. People think that, yeah, you're going to start the business and then suddenly it's just an upward spiral, and it's not.
Oh man, there's so much to learn, isn't there, when you first start? Like, because like I say, I went to a private girls' school. We were told that we had to go to university and go and get a job. Nobody ever said, and there was something called Young Enterprise, which we did do. I remember doing that because I remember selling baked potatoes at lunchtime. But it still never occurred to me that going out and doing something and people paying me for it on my terms was anything that I could do as like a career. That hadn't even, the thought wouldn't have crossed my mind from the very day that I started school until, you know, a year and a half ago. I would never have thought of setting up my own business. And so I had to learn everything. I had to learn how to set up, how to do finances. I had to learn like a business bank account. Do I need one? Do I not? What kind of insurance?
Google became your best friend.
Yeah. I had to learn like GDPR. Oh my God. Like, I still don't understand GDPR. And a year and a half later, and I've read a lot. I had to learn content marketing. Like, all of these things that you've got to start to learn how to do just so that you can get a client is incredible. And like copy, I had to learn how to write copy for a website so I could write my own website. And all of these things, it's been such an incredible journey, just learning all of the things that go into creating a business. And all of those things just made me want to be a virtual assistant more, because I was like, oh my God, these poor women, they're working so hard.
That is so true. There's so much of the stuff that people, you know, that start out, they come to me and say, oh, and I look at them and I say, you don't understand how much there is to actually go and put together. What I recommend always to them is, you know, get yourself a VA to actually help you just do all that admin stuff while you're focusing on the marketing and the sales and that initially, especially, you know, when it's a brand new business, because I mean, you're spending so much time on on admin that you're not focused on actually bringing in that first client, which ends up delaying.
Totally.
So
and I think it's not an easy mindset to get yourself into, is it? Because as someone who's been on a salary all my life, like, my feeling was, but if I give money to somebody else, that's my money that I'm giving. And why is that? So
now you
trying
know
to
how your
explain to
boss
somebody,
felt.
yeah, well, this is it. Like, I mean, when I started making, like, the first thing I did when I started actually getting better than a bit of pocket money from this business was to outsource to a cleaner, because I pay her 40 quid to come in once a week and sparkle the place up. But while she's doing that, which takes her, I pay her 40 quid either way because the product's the same, but it normally takes her a couple of hours, maybe 3. In that time, I've paid her 40 quid. I've sat at the computer and earned 90.
Yes.
So do you know what I mean? And I couldn't have, because number one, it wouldn't have taken me 3 hours to clean that house. Like, with all the stopping to cry, it would have taken me.
I think it boils down to opportunity cost at the end of the day. And I mean, that's one thing that I talk about quite a lot. Is saying, okay, what's your time worth per hour? You know,
exactly.
And go and calculate now. If your time is worth, let's say, 50 quid an hour, right? Or let's say 100 quid an hour, and you've got this task to do. Let's say it is setting up an email sequence in ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or whatever the case is. That's going to take you the next, let's say, 6 hours, you know, to do that. That's 600 quid that's costing you, versus getting a VA to do it, who'll probably go and do it for like 150 quid or something like that for you. You're actually winning at the end of the day.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a complete no-brainer when you put it in those terms, but it's hard.
Try to put it in those terms, but people don't think like, they think they're giving their money away. No, you're not. Because now I'm spending those 6 hours and I'm focused on having a Zoom call with a new client, or maybe posting something on social media from a marketing or branding perspective, or you know, doing something productive from a sales and marketing perspective. And I think that's a mind shift change that a lot of entrepreneurs need to kind of go through to understand the value that a VA actually offers you. I mean, I use a VA offer, right? And then obviously I've obviously got my daughter as well, but that's like child labor, so I shouldn't say that on the video.
What's the point of having kids if you can't use them? Jeez.
But I pay her as well, you know, and she does a whole lot of like sequencing and, you know, automations and things for me, and graphics and things like that. But I mean, I use a VA a lot for different components. So it's not that you always have to have a VA for, you know, per month, you know, consistent. Exactly. Project. Normally, I do it on a project basis. So I'm like, okay, so I'm launching a new campaign. This is what I've got. All these little things that need to go together. Dump it out. There you go. Go focus on that. So I love that idea. Take me through. How did you get your first client? That's always the big question, isn't it?
I'm going to have to tell you 2, because one of them kind of didn't count.
Okay.
But he's still a client to this day and I love him dearly. And then there was one who was really in my niche. So when I first started, I didn't realize, like, I'd heard of niching, but I was like, well, but that's a stupid idea, because if I tell some people that I can't work with them, then I can't work with all the people and I don't get all the money. Yes. So I didn't at all. And I put a few ads out on local Facebook groups. And about a month and a half of doing that later, a fella from up the road messaged me, who's an electrical engineer. So you can see really in my wheelhouse already, like, because maths is me and physics. Yeah. Oh yeah. But he's dyslexic, and he has, like, he does tender. Like, do you know when people put contracts out to tender and you have to write a big old fat thing like this to say I'm the person for the job? And because he's dyslexic, it's a real ball ache for him to do that, because he can't spot, you know, when things have got, like, the words go all wonky on the page.
I'm like
and
that.
Writing policies and stuff like that. Yeah, it's an absolute pain in the backside for him. And so, like, once every 3 to 6 months, like, I'll get an email off Chris just saying, would you mind just, you know, updating this package of stuff that we've got with this, and this, and can you find me a policy for that? And fill it out. And that's what I do. And I love it. Like, it's nothing to do with the stuff that I do now that I ended up doing. But I'm so grateful for him, because he was my first client. And
you never forget that first client.
He sent me an email. Yeah, I put my prices up and he emailed me back and said that he thought it was brilliant that I was putting my prices up, which was lovely. And then he'd said at the end of it something like that their business had gone up by 80% in the last year, and that they were really grateful to have had me to be a part of that. And I thought, that's just,
that means so much.
That's an ideal client, isn't it? Somebody who sees that you're a part of their business and wants you to be invested in their business. And I am invested in his business. It's brilliant. So that was Chris. That was about a month and a half. And then maybe a month after that, I put a post out on, I was in a Facebook group. It was Karen who came next. So I was in a Facebook group called Mums in Business, which is a really big one, definitely in the UK, but there are tendrils for mums in business all over the place. Leona Burton runs it and she's wonderful. But an ex-mum of one of the boys, she's not an ex-mum because that would be weird.
Yeah.
I used to teach a boy, and she is now quite big in Mums in Business. And so I joined the group because I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And maybe I can, look out for ways of finding clients, because I was still trying to learn how to do it as well. Like, I'd already learned that you can't go into groups and say, I'm a VA, pick me, because you get in trouble for that.
You got to be like subtle.
Subtle ways. But then doing it without feeling like a bit sticky and gross as well. Like, there's a lot of things to learn there. But anyway, there was a lady in there and she put up about how she was a tutor, and she was struggling with something, and she mentioned time, but she didn't mention a VA. And I just, in a comment underneath, said, have you thought about a virtual assistant? Because I specifically work with educators, because by this time I had come round to the idea that you had to niche your services. And it occurred to me that there are a lot of people who work in education businesses who could use someone who used to be a teacher, who knows the lingo, who knows like all the acronyms that come with teaching, and just who knows how it feels like to be a business in the education sector, who knows, who has a passion that's the same as your passion, that connecting point, but also who knows the frustrations. There's a connecting point there as well, of knowing what it's like to work in a sector where there is no money. Yes. And where, people part with their money. It's hard for people to part with the money because they've got to justify it in a budget, especially for schools. That's hard work. So, and I think I've been working with her for about 14 months now, and I do her a weekly newsletter and I write her a blog, which we choose together each week, which is something to do with teaching and learning. Like last week, I think we wrote about growth mindset, which is something I was massive into when I was a teacher, and the power of yet. And so I love doing those because it keeps my hand in with teaching and that. And I do 5 little social media posts, which I don't do for anybody else, but I did at the beginning because I thought I'd be okay at social media, and then realised that it's head explodingly awful. But she doesn't mind about metrics. She just wants 5 posts to go out Monday to Friday. And that's fine by me, because I don't mind playing in Canva and doing the odd Facebook post. So so she was my first proper client, but that took a lot of working out. That actually somebody put it to me, really, they said it's like you're standing on a soapbox and you've got a crowd of people around you, and you've got one little hose pipe and it's got like no pressure, and there's just this little pathetic stream coming out of it. And if you try and get everyone with the hose pipe, like one drop's going to fall on one person like once every week.
Good analogy.
Whereas if you nail it down to the 4 people stood right in front of you and aim that pathetic hose pipe at them, they're going to get those drops more often, more regularly. And that really made sense to me then. I was like, oh, right, okay, yeah. So it's not about catching somebody at the perfect time in a Facebook group, although that sometimes happens and did with Karen. Yeah. It's about them seeing you often enough that when their perfect time does come up, yours is the name that drops into their head first, and so they contact
And it's picking that niche so that people can associate. They say, Katie, educational, education.
Yes, she's the one who used to be a teacher.
It needs to be that association. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't pick a niche when they start off, Or I even see a lot of service providers now, where they're providing, especially people that provide services, whether it's, consulting.
It's hard though, isn't it? It's a mindset shift. to say
they're trying to
that you're
spray
limiting yourself.
You know, rather than saying, you know, they're trying to, you know, spray, get that one drop onto everyone, rather than saying, well, let me pick a niche, you know, what is that going to be? Whether that is an industry or, you know, maybe it's technology focused or, you know, something along that. It could be courses, it could be, you know, consulting, whatever.
Exactly. And the most successful entrepreneurs, in my experience, from the people I've worked with, as well as VAs who I've come to know, are the ones who pick a niche but do it in a clever way. Like, I think education worked well for me in the beginning because I didn't know, like, I knew that my teacher skill set was a good skill set to have, because teachers can do pretty much anything because they have to do everything when they're a teacher. So organizing, paperwork, working with stakeholders, customer service for the parents, all of this stuff, like, I knew I could do and do well. But as the year, 18 months now has rolled along, it's become more and more apparent to me that while I love working with educators, and I still want to do that because I like connecting with people who have the same passions and interests as me, actually it's the tech that I really enjoy. And so my next job now is to start, like, moving the it's like turning the Titanic, isn't it? But you're trying to move into a new niche, which is going to be systems.
Well, would you be moving into the new niche or rather expanding into that niche, right? I mean,
I think you're right, because like you said, I don't want to go away from teachers and educators. I just want to narrow what I do for them. And I think that'll be really good, because like Active Campaign's a massive market at the second man, because it's so frustrating to work with Active Campaign.
I mean, I use Active Campaign. I have dozens of automations, dozens of campaigns and stuff. And honestly, the time it takes me to personally go and set it up is a pain in the backside. You know, it is, but it's because you don't know how it works. And so you have to go and look it all up. So you're not just setting it up, you're also finding out how to do it. So bringing somebody in who knows it and also knows it well enough to make it work for you, instead of going through the lines you're supposed to go. Because, I mean, you know, you take something like Active Campaign, right? I mean, I've got obviously the bigger version on that. So I use predictive content. I use predictive sending and stuff. So that means when you're going to go and create an email, it's got different components to it.
Oh man, conditional content is it's mad, isn't it?
But the conversions on stuff like that is huge, you know, so it obviously works really, really well. But yes, I mean, getting into that kind of niche and that, you know, people that want to, you know, like course creators or coaches or e-commerce stores, especially e-commerce stores, really, that is something that e-commerce stores, I believe, really, really need, is stuff like, you know, Active Campaign that can actually, you know, help them a lot in terms of promoting the right kind of products, you know, to their clients. So let's
getting the integrations to work as well, because honest to God, like, that's half the battle, isn't it? Is getting bloody Stripe set up.
All the rest, correct? Yeah. So let's talk about. Well, we've just covered. Basically, my next question was about technology. We've kind of covered that. Technology in your own business. How pertinent is it as a VA? And that?
Oh my God, I use it. Like, there's so many things that I love. Like, when I started out as a teacher, I didn't know about a lot of the new things on the market, because as a teacher, you use quite limited tools. So for example, I was amazing at Microsoft Office. I still am. I'm really good at, like, if you ask me to format a PowerPoint, like that pleases my soul.
I can honestly tell you, I have not looked at PowerPoints in a very long time.
I know, nobody does, but it's so bad.
I sent to my VA is like, quite literally, I don't want to see it. Just go put it together. You know, here's my content, and I leave it on a voice clip, because my content is voice clips. I don't have time to go type it up. This is what I want. Put together, put it together, make sure it's done.
You know, loads of people say Canva for presentations, but I would argue very strongly that while Canva is brilliant for graphics, PowerPoint is still the best for presentations. It's amazing. So I knew about all these things, but I've never heard of Canva, for example. And so when I got it, like, the buzz was Canva. So I gave it a go, and I thought that was quite fun. So yeah, I use Canva a lot. Then I got a few more clients and realized that I was going to need a CRM. And started with Dubsado, fell in love with Dubsado, now offer Dubsado setups, because Dubsado is it is the best for small service-based businesses. Dubsado, you won't find it better. the customizationable, and the CSS that you can use in it, in the forms as well, to make them beautiful, is just out of this world. So yeah, I use Dubsado. Airtable is huge. I love Airtable. Like, I'm not a big fan of Excel, and Airtable's like a sexier version of Excel.
Oh, yes,
It's just, it's for the cool kids, and I really
the cool kids.
while I do active campaign for my clients, I myself use MailerLite because I'm so crap at sending emails for my own business that it wouldn't be worth the $9 a month to pay for it. And MailerLite has a great free offering which lets you do
I think that's also quite, I mean, that's quite true of a lot of people, of service-based businesses, and even product-based businesses. Within their own companies, it tends to be like, kind of take the back seat. It's like the mechanic, right? His car's, kind of running, but his client's cars are always, running smoothly. It's just that kind of thing. Let's talk about, I mean, the whole purpose of this interview was, showcasing, how you create a work-life balance by starting a business, right? So let's talk about personal impact. My first question is, what is that one thing that you needed to change within yourself to get where you are today, to become who you are today and is successful like you are today?
That's an excellent question. I think there's two things related to mindset. I think I needed to shift to an entrepreneur's mindset, and that was hard at first for the reasons that we've discussed already. Also, confidence was a big part of it as well, because as I said to you before, I'm not, just personality wise, I'm not the kind of person who, if somebody said you're shit, would go, what do you mean? Like, if somebody says you're shit, I would just be like, oh no, you're probably like, I am, I'm really
yeah. You kind of just accepted it,
Exactly. But I'd allowed that to get so much worse over the years, like through teaching, I allowed myself to be dragged down into this mindset that I was worth nothing. And I don't think you can be a successful entrepreneur if you don't believe that you're worth the money. And a really good example of that is when I started out, I knew that the industry standard, because I got a hold of the Society for Virtual Assistants produces every year a report. They survey virtual assistants and produce a report about VA businesses and what they do. And part of that is to say, what's the average, like what do they charge on average? And I knew when I started up in April last year that the average VA was charging sort of 28 to 30 pounds an hour. And I set my business up and charged 20 pounds.
Oh, wow. No.
Which just goes to show, doesn't it, like what you think of yourself. And pretty quickly, I moved it up to about 25 pounds an hour and felt like, ooh.
Yeah, this is exciting. Yeah, there you go.
And then in January, it took me ages. In October, I wrote to all my clients and said, I have been umming and ahhing over this for bloody ages, but I have to believe in myself and my own self-worth. And so come January, my prices will go up to 30 pounds an hour. So I've done that. And so now I'm broadly in line with industry standards.
So my question with that was, you increased your prices, on and on, but you didn't actually lose clients.
Nope.
Exactly.
Not a single one.
But I think that's the biggest fear of people, not increasing the prices and not believing in themselves and the worth of their own services, and the quality of service they can provide, that they think, well, people won't pay that. People won't pay.
I retained every single one of my clients. Not a one of them left me. Exactly. And 2 weeks after that, I took on my biggest client of them all, who I still work with now. But she's the taking on that client was the thing that made my business go from being a pocket money business to being now I'm able to go half-as with my husband on all the bills, all the rent, everything. I am now in my own right earning more than I was when I was a teacher.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. And I mean, so basically we were talking about it was confidence and entrepreneurial mindset, right?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, you've been through quite a lot. I mean, you've had some setbacks, you've had some failures, let's be honest. How do you find balancing being a mom, a wife, and an entrepreneur? I mean, yeah, it's not like just a wife and entrepreneur, or it's mom of 2 kids, right? Wife entrepreneur. You got to balance that. How do you find that work-life balance? I mean, because the whole purpose of you starting a business was to find that balance, and you've kind of found that anyway. Because you've got that kind of flexibility to a degree.
Yeah, I would argue that I'm still not very good at it, but I'm getting better. A big thing for me is supportive family. Toby's amazing. Like, he's a teacher. Like, so he's working 8 hours.
So he's doing the 70 hours a week.
And he works in a school for children with special educational needs. So like, his stress level is way above what mine ever was. But he is brilliant with the kids. And when he gets home, he is there with them and he is able to watch them for me when I need to work. So supportive family. And I might also add that my dad and my stepmom only live 5 minutes up the road, and they have each kid once a week after school, and like they take them out places and they buy them. So like, having a really supportive family around is really, really helpful. And I don't think I could have done it without them. The thing that I'm learning more and more as I go along is setting boundaries with clients, but also with myself, because my problem is I'm a people pleaser. Yeah. And a lot of my self-worth comes from knowing that I am somebody's like wing woman, like I am their person. And so when somebody texts me at 9 o'clock at night and goes, fuck, Katie, like this is going on, like I want to go, oh, I'll go and get the laptop and I'll go and do it right now. And for a long time, that's what I've been doing. Whereas now I'm trying to set boundaries with clients that says, these are my working hours. When I'm with my children, I am with my children. And when those little buggers have gone to bed, I am in front of Netflix with my husband and a glass of wine. Like, so, and it's hard. And I think I've probably made a rod for my own back by not doing it sooner, because obviously clients get used to a certain level of service and what you do. And then to try and pull that back and go, actually, no, I'm not doing that anymore. But what I have done recently, actually, since I spoke to you, is I sent an email out to all my clients and said that from here on out, I'm going to be using Monday to Thursday to do their tasks. But Fridays are now going to be a day for me to be inside my own business, aside from little daily tasks like email checking that I do for them anyway. But so now I work Monday to Thursday for my clients. And on Friday, like I've joined a membership called Atomic, which is amazing for growing and scaling. And I've joined a course about ClickUp, because ClickUp is my new favorite thing in the world. Like that's my new piece of tech that I love. So I'm learning about ClickUp so that I can start to offer that as a service. And so, yeah, I'm trying to use Fridays for professional and personal growth.
Well, I mean, it's for working on your business, like we discussed last time. You know, it's
yeah, man. And that's been really valuable. Like, I've only done it. I've done it for 3 weeks, and on one of them I caved and worked.
That's fine. I mean, there's that expectation. I'm very much the same as you. Like I would get a call now, and I'm actually, while we're on this interview, I can see stuff popping on my screen, and that my clients know that I will respond. Because I've still got meetings after this, so till later in the evening. But I also have that kind of balance in between as well. It's just finding that balance. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to cut it down to, listen, I'm only available to you 3 hours a day kind of thing. It's not that. The balance is more about, taking that time for yourself, whether it's in slots or as a chunk or whatever, and
making it work for you and your family, I think, as well.
What to do with, in my case, it's my daughter. In your case, it's, with Toby and the kids and that. Well, maybe Toby. I don't know so much about the kids, but the little monster.
They're lovely, really. I wouldn't be without them.
No, exactly. So, okay, let's. We've only got a few minutes left. So, what would you say is the top 3 lessons you learned as a startup entrepreneur? Because I mean, you've kind of like taken this. You've come from nothing to charging. What was it, 10 or was it 20 quid, an hour, and they're trying to start a business, and all you had was a website and a freaking email and that, and, some software to get started, to where now, I mean, you're doing really well for yourself at the end of the day. All things considering that you're alone, right? You're not you're not a massive team. You know, at the end of the day,
just me
yourself in that, but you're comfortable. It's not like you're not struggling in any way, sense, or form. You know, is what are those like 2 or 3 lessons that you would say is that you would pass on to other entrepreneurs that are, you know, either online now watching this, or people that are going to watch the replays, because you're going to get hundreds of replays on this. And I mean, what can they take from this in terms of lessons learned? You know, if there's
I would say,
I can tell you it's these 3 things, you know.
That's really hard.
I know, because there are normally so many.
It's really hard because I think there are practicalities, like making sure that you know how to set up a small business, like the legalities of it, like the insurance and stuff like that. I didn't know any of that, and I found that really hard at the beginning. So I would say one of the things was, don't be afraid to pay to find that out. Like what I wish I'd done.
Don't be scared to pay for advice.
Like a mentor or something like that. Yeah, because like while I did it all for free by looking at free blogs and, you know, going on Google and asking questions, like it took a long time. It took me 2 months to work out that I should niche, man. And
you could have literally, someone could have told you in 2 hours.
If I had joined like a membership or a mentorship, or if I just had an hour's power hour session with someone who was a VA mentor, they would have like been like, "Boof, Katie, this is how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop being an idiot. Do this, 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 and this." And I can guarantee you, I would have had clients sooner, and I would have had systems in place, better systems in place, instead of doing what I had to do, which was like kind of scramble to build the systems behind all the stuff that was coming in. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like that CRM.
So basically, it's like asking for the advice. Don't be scared to ask for the advice.
Yeah, and pay for it if necessary, because it's worth it, because the time that you will save in farting about on YouTube is worth it.
Because, I mean, you also get so many different opinions. I mean, YouTube's great. I always say to people, you know, like I sell my online courses and people say, but I can get information from YouTube. I'll say, sure, man, you know, go ahead. You know, if you can focus through all of that stuff, because it's not just what you see. It's you need to look at the sequencing of it. What thing do you need to do at what stage? Because you can't start at step 3 if you haven't done step 1 and 2, you know, kind of stuff. So, okay, so number 1.
Finding all in one place as well. Yeah, that's one thing. I would say another thing is, man, there's so many. Like I would say, like we've spoken about, I would say like working on professional and personal growth always, like not just getting into the business. And I differentiate personal and professional growth as well, because I think like for me, like the ClickUp membership is professional growth, because I'm going to be able to monetize that at some point. Whereas I started doing miracle mornings, and just getting up earlier and doing like mindfulness and journaling and stuff like that. And although it's had an impact on my professional life, actually that was personal growth, like to get that hour in the morning when the children aren't up and go for a walk. Like I live in the most beautiful county in the whole of England. It's so gorgeous. And now every morning, it's a bit harder now because I get up at 5:30 and the sun's still not up, so I have to wait for a bit. But in the summer, like I would stumble out of bed and just walk up the hill past all the sheep and sit and watch the sunrise over Clee Hill, which is the oldest. It's on the oldest map in the UK, Clee Hill. It's on the map of Monday. So you know, people have been looking at the sunrise coming up over that hill for as long as people have been able to think about watching a sunrise, and to feel that connection with the place that I live and the environment around me, and to just sit and take time to feel grateful for what I've got, and to plan for the day ahead has been huge for me, really big.
That's probably a big one, because I mean, every person that I've interviewed so far, you know, all has a similar, you know, kind of you know, personal development that they're doing. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are going to be watching this and that, you know, they tend to think, oh no, but I'm so busy, I don't have time to go and just take that hour, get your mind right, meditate, watch the sunrise, go for a walk, whatever it is, you know, whatever it works for, journaling, whatever it works for you. you need to actually take that time, because it gets you ready for the day, gets your mind in the right, you in the right frame of mind, and that to actually tackle the day, that nothing seems hard, because otherwise you're just, you're not going to be that productive. People say, oh,
totally. And you can find time, you can make time. Like, I am busy, man. Like, I get up, I do my bits, but then like I work, and then I get the kids up, and then the kids go to school, then I come back and I work some more, then I go home and get the kids, and then I make the kids tea, and then I make them stop killing each other before I do a bit more work, and then it is my day is full, dude. But the journal that I got is one that it's called the 5-minute journal, and it is literally like it's a set out one, and it gives you things to write, and it only takes 5 minutes. When I'm walking up the hill, I'm listening to a podcast.
Yes.
And do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like
100%.
I don't have time to read books anymore, and it's a shame, because I've got a literature degree and I love books. So I've invested in Audible, and I listen to books. Like, I listen to business books, like the whole of Miracle Morning I just listen to on Audible. I haven't got time to read it. But
I'm exactly the same. I think I have about 500-600 titles on my Audible already. I've had it for many years though. And it is my ritual every morning, and even in the evenings, when I go to bed, I'm putting the stuff on and I'm listening to the stuff.
Sleepy time. It's great. Audible.
I don't have time to go and read the book. I'm lazy. I must be honest. I like to listen to the story.
I don't think I've got the attention span anymore. That's a really sad thing to say, but I really don't. But yeah, no, Audible really helps me at sleep time as well, because I'm an anxious person in general. I put on something that I don't give a shit about, but I've listened to a million times and sounds nice. So my Audible going to sleepy time is Stephen Fry reading Harry Potter. Like, I've heard it a million times. I know the story back to front. Like, I could tell it better than Stephen bloody Fry could. But listening to his voice, it's delightful, and it makes me go to sleep because I feel safe and comfortable. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Same thing every night. A nighttime routine is a really helpful thing, I think. And actually, that might be my third point, is routine, I think, is very, very helpful for getting you to do the things that you don't really want to fucking do. Do you know, like all the stuff that you put off? If it's a part of a routine, I put stuff into Google, like my life is built inside Google Calendar. And I schedule things that I definitely don't want to do, because if it's in Google Calendar, I've got to do it.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. My calendar is full with everything, whether it's personal or business. Everything is put in there, even the stuff I don't want to do, because you actually end up doing it when it is in there.
You do. I mean, it takes time. I wouldn't say that it's a magic button, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. Like, put it in Google Calendar and magically you'll suddenly do your social media posts for the week. But with self-discipline as well, it becomes a habit. So you put it in the calendar, you make yourself do it one week, and then you do it the next week, and you make yourself, and after a month, you've created a habit, and no longer is it something that you dread, because it's just a habit. You might not love doing it, you may still not like doing it at the end of the month, but at least it gets done and it doesn't feel painful anymore. So yeah, that would be my third point, would be routine and planning. Like, I schedule my days. I have Google Calendar, and I also just sit every morning, and not only I'll look at Google Calendar and I'll write my day out for a week as well, because for me, like, pen to brain is a big thing. Like, if I write it down, it's in my head, whereas sometimes when I look at something in Google Calendar, I'll go, oh yeah, and then it'll be like straight out the other
side. I'm with you on that. So I mean, where to next for Katie Stone PA? I mean, you were talking about you kind of looking at expanding this, well, obviously, going into a different avenue, but at the same time, last time we chatted, you kind of hinted at, okay, well, you've got to start bringing on board other PAs, VAs and stuff into your business, and kind of work together as a,
I'm coming around
to it. I don't know if that's the right word, but like within your business, is actually expand on that.
I think so. I mean, when you look at scaling, you've kind of got three choices, haven't you? Like, it seems to me anyway. Like, you can raise your prices, you can begin to outsource, and agency kind of thing, so you can take on more work basically, or you can move from one-to-one to one-to-many. Like, those are your sort of, and that's probably the order that you do it in as well, isn't it, really? Like, start off by raising your prices, then start agencying it by, taking on other freelancers and farming that work out. And once you've got that done, I'm guessing, I haven't done it yet, I'm guessing you would therefore have the time inside your own business to be able to build an audience and create these Facebook groups and stuff like that you need to do to be able to launch a one-to-many offering. So in my head, like specializing in tech will allow me to raise my prices. So I anticipate being able to move from £30 an hour for general VA services to about sort of £40 to £50 an hour for specialist tech setups.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and also you can package, which is good, isn't it? Because once you can package services, it's no longer about how long you take doing them. It's then just that the product.
I actually had this discussion on a group the other day. It was a freelancing group in the States, and the VAs were asking freelancers were asking a question. It's like, okay, but how do they calculate this per hour, etc.? And I decided to just jump on because I'm kind of there just watching comments. I seldom actually go and comment, and I was like, come on, everyone, we got to stop this crap off per hour. I said, I don't know how long it takes you. I mean, it could take you 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours. I mean, that's irrelevant to me. Quote me on the project. And I don't care if that is 500 quid at the end of the day. Give me a price. And if that takes you 2 hours, I don't care. I'm paying per project rather, or per deliverable as a client. I prefer paying like that than saying, okay, well, what is it per hour? I can understand the per hour thing when you're dealing with like smaller tasks, etc. Okay.
Yeah, generalist.
I need you for 2 hours a week to do this. Okay, that's a completely different story. But especially when it comes to tech and that, and we were talking about tech, I was like, no, don't tell me how many hours. For 5 hours, you can give me 5 hours a week to help me with one of my campaigns on Active Campaign or whatever. I said, does that mean you're going to finish that campaign in 5 hours? Or
exactly. I'd
rather quote me on to do the campaign. What is that? And I think there's a huge gap especially in the freelancing and VA market in terms of that. Don't do it per hour for those kinds of things. Just say, okay, for the project, what is your project? Get the details of the project, quote accordingly. And if that takes you 2 hours or 40 hours,
well, like I said, that's what I do with my cleaner. Like I don't tot up how many hours she does. Like the house is fucking clean and I'm happy. She deserves £40.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. It's more on the effort. And I think that's great. So, I mean, we're going to sign off now, and it was great chatting to you, but what can you leave? If there's that one thing that you want to leave with everyone as we say goodbye, is there something you want to kind of like leave with them and say that will motivate them to say, you know what, hell yeah, if Katie could do this, I can do this too, kind of thing.
I would say that, man, because like I'm of a certain, like, I guess that people have, like, I'm 41 this year. So I was 37 when Rosie was born, when all of this went down. And I never, like, if you'd asked me 4 years ago if I would own my own business, like I would have laughed in your face. And if you'd asked me if I would love that business like my third child, I would have stuck my nose in the air and said, like, who loves a business like love their own child? And then, like stroked Archie's head a little bit. But as it is, like this business is my third child. And do you know what? I have never, like, I loved teaching and I miss teaching every single day. I miss the children.
Yes.
And I miss the outcome. I miss what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I didn't love it as much as I love this. Like the self-worth that I take from this business and the what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, my stepmother has just dropped Rosie off and she's making this, sat me out. Like it's 100% worth it. And not everybody will be able to start up like me because not everybody had the advantage of becoming jobless in a pandemic, but also being financially secure at the same time. Yeah. But the great thing about being a freelancer is it's something you can set up as a side hustle. And that would be my thing is if you can't afford to just go bollocks to the salary, I'm going to try this. Either you could save up and like get 3 months income and, do it like that. But do it as a side hustle. Do it on the weekends. Like, see if you love it, because I can guarantee you will love it my daughter is now stood at the window doing this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, listen, yeah,
So I feel like my message was diluted by Rosie making faces at me through the window then. But it is so good being an entrepreneur. And like, I don't think, no, I can't, you should never say never, and you should always be open-minded, but I can't imagine a position coming along, a salaried position coming along that I would want to take at the moment over giving this up.
And that's what it's all about. It's you found that passion of yours. And I'm so happy for you, because so few people actually find that, at the end of the day. And yeah, entrepreneurship is hard, but I mean, for those that are going to be watching this, look, it's possible. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you've done.
It doesn't matter how little you know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much money you've got or any of that. Mm-hmm. It's more, when I listen to your story, for me, it's one about persistence, commitment, really going out there and not being scared to ask and doing stuff and, and learning to change your mindset from one of like, I'm not worthy to hell yeah, I can do this. I'm worth this, that kind of thing. And that's what I love so much about your story is, it's such an inspiration for those people that don't want to get started.
It is amazing.
But they're scared. And it's like, well, so was Katie. Look what she's managed to achieve, in a year.
Yeah, it is hard. And I don't know if I would have done it if I hadn't been forced by circumstance. I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't say for sure that I would have done it.
Kick on the ass, and it's kind of like the universe.
Yeah. But that's why I'm here, man. It's because like if I hadn't been forced by circumstance, I probably wouldn't have done it. And that's so sad, because I would still be out there thinking I was crap. I would probably still tell people I was a teacher, because I did that until about, probably about a year ago. I was starting this business. I was still telling people. I didn't tell people I was a VA, told people I was an ex-teacher.
Yeah.
And now I don't do that anymore. I tell people I'm a VA. It's part of me, this business, and it's part of how I define myself. And yeah, it's really precious to me now. And I think it's an amazing thing. And I hope more people start to do it. It's an incredible way to live your life. Awesome.
Katie, listen, thank you so much. It was awesome, absolutely awesome chatting to you as always. I mean, you're like a, ray of sunshine. I just love it.
Sweary ray of sunshine.
So down to earth. I love it. Absolutely love it. And don't worry, we'll beep out the words.
That'll be a job for your daughter, presumably.
No, we're going to leave them in because I do it just as much. So, but listen, guys, anyone that's watching now and anyone that's going to be watching any of the replays and stuff on this video, if you want to connect with Katie, you want to follow her, etc., please log into our members area. If you log into our members area, I'm actually going to share my screen here for a second. If you log into our members area, you can see all the past interviews and the upcoming interviews. You can book those. But if you go to Katie, you scroll down, read a bit about Katie, and you can actually connect with her on all the different social media platforms and even go and pop her an email as well at the end of the day. So if you guys are looking for an awesome VA, a fun, down-to-earth VA, guys, hit up Katie, give her a shout, and let her help you out. Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've loved it.
And we're going to be chatting again soon. Okay.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Awesome. Cheers, Katie. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.